Welcome to another episode of VNture Podcast, your weekly source of visual novel goodness. I am Emar, and together with Tauros, we shall venture into another discussion about VN. To the kings and queens, our listeners, this one is for you, as we shall discuss the rulers of nations that appear in VNs. So Tauros, kick us off with a title we know and love.
Yes, of course. I know you've definitely been looking forward to this episode because we really get to dive into world building. And not only that, but the kinds of people who lead these countries and fantastical worlds. Definitely one visual novel adjacent work that spawned this discussion probably stems from the Fate Zero anime. Most famously, that discussion between the kings of Artoria, Iskander, and Gilgamesh in that one episode. And it really points out some of the differences that different rulers and kings have in different time periods and their own personal experiences. You've got Iskander, who views being king as someone larger than life, a person to be envied, admired, and worshipped by all his men. And so, by doing so, the king also becomes someone who is admired, and his soldiers are willing to lay down their lives for him, out of admiration. You see that most clearly in his noble phantasm, which he even shows off later to great effect. And so you have that one aspect, although you can make arguments for how well that worked out for him in his rule.
Oh yeah.
Because, he was Alexander the Conqueror, and he conquered the whole world over, but after his death, his entire empire kind of fell apart pretty quickly. And so, as great as he was, as larger than life as he was, once, he passed away, that was ultimately the end of that. And it was a nation and a conqueror that relied entirely on himself to propel it. Now, he was someone who could rise to the occasion in all instances of the Fate series. But again, it very much depends on him.
Yeah, because the kingdom he created was as sturdy as him, but also as brittle as the moment he disappears.
And I mean, on another note, then you had Artoria, who viewed being king as an ideal. The king is someone who is, fundamentally separate from her people, different than what Iskander thought, because the king should be just. The king should be moral. The king should be perfect. And as such, it's not someone you're supposed to be relatable to your subjects, because you should be on a different level than them. It also doesn't help that Artoria herself is views herself as a savior. Someone who always needs to take that responsibility and lead her people away from destruction. And, that responsibility lies on her shoulders. And so she has a very different view where instead of being alongside her people like Iskander does, she's someone who shoulders that responsibility fundamentally separate from them. She wouldn't ask her people to stand side by side and tackle the problems together. It would be her herself dealing with it. Which is also,
very lonesome.
Oh, yes, definitely. And she arguably does it to great effect until she doesn't, with the whole collapse of Britain and the Round Table and all of that. And of course, that's what hits her the hardest. And that's the kind of guilt she carries with her the entire time. Instead of being a proper savior, it's just she focuses on the one time she didn't. And then you've got Gilgamesh. He's very much kind of the opposite of everything, where he is self-centered and greedy and destructive. He only cares about himself and his curiosity, and kind of doesn't really care about his people at all, to the point where his people kind of hate him. But it doesn't really matter if you have overwhelming strength and power, and you make them respect you.
Yeah, in a way, he rules by fear, right? That's the point.
To the point where they will listen to you because they have to, not because of
Exactly. Yep.
Iskander, who makes them want to, or Artoria, who kind of makes them feel indebted to her. He just makes his rulers cower in fear.
I mean, there is a reason why his favorite saying was always mongrel.
Oh,
Right?
you know
It
it.
fits.
Yep, it fits. So then you tie that over to the, Fate Stay Night visual novel, which was technically first. Fate Zero is a prequel, but it came along years later. And I think it's most obvious and I guess most sympathetic to the reader when you have your first route, which is heavily featured alongside Saber herself. And you get to really see a lot of Saber's inner thoughts and her own feelings about her rule. You see firsthand how she carries a lot of guilt over Britain's demise, and she's painted in a much more sympathetic light because you see how much she takes it personally. Heck, her wish for the Holy Grail was to just prevent her reign entirely, because she figured that if she was never king, then someone better would come along who wouldn't, end her reign in total destruction.
Yeah, I mean, you can see this in two things. One, her stance on kingliness is reflected in how she behaves as a guardian towards her master, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the second is in her wish is being a guardian for her own people from herself.
From herself, yeah, I really like that. That's a good point. Yeah. Because she really puts a lot of distance between all of her people and even the other fellow knights of the Round Table. To the point where it somewhat kind of led to her and her country's demise. But she doesn't even think that, that's one possible solution is to maybe, grow those human connections more. It's more, no, I was just fundamentally incompatible with it all.
Yeah, exactly.
And that I was just the wrong answer for this, and someone better should take the reins.
Yeah, her ultimate conclusion was, I shouldn't be the king.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. She only sees the bad. When that is something important to focus on, of course, but there's more to it.
Exactly. It cannot be a single point of focus.
Mm-hmm. And then, also in Fate Stay Night, you still got Gilgamesh, and he's still his jerk-ass self. He does not care. He takes whatever he wants. He is overwhelmingly powerful, and he knows it and abuses it. Sure. I think one of the funniest parts is when he first makes his introduction in the Fate route. And and I guess this is the establishing character moment for us and for most Fate fans. You just see how busted he is with the Noble Phantasm and how he just rains down everything. So all of these treasures of the world are mine.
Yeah, and mine alone.
Oh, man. So you have two very different approaches to being a king. And thankfully, this being a story and the author can just write whatever side they want, you can have the good guy winning.
Yeah, exactly. Overwhelming power my ass. Nothing beats plot armor, right?
No, nothing beats plot armor and the power of friendship.
Exactly. Oh my god.
So you have those two very different approaches, and to be fair, both Artoria and Gilgamesh have a lot of fans, respectively.
Oh, yeah,
part of it is because this is a work of fiction and characters exist to be entertaining. Obviously, if you had to experience, either of these kinds of situations firsthand, you'd have a very different opinion. But hey, we can be here and we can appreciate their charisma and their ideals and their quirky behaviors and personalities.
Yeah. For as much as you wouldn't pick him as your ruler of choice, right? For the Gilgamesh, you give him points for rule of cool, right?
Absolutely. For being so over the top, he just steals the scene constantly.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes, but on that way, so those are the various different kinds of rulers. I'm sorry, I don't want to hog the spotlight or anything. What do you think, MR? What have you got on your hand?
Yeah. You went with one of yours, standouts, your typical fate. So let me bring one of mine, okay? So we are even, okay? So I brought runs. And exactly like you, I brought two contrasting rulers. Okay? And we see even the result of the rulership. Since this series of games is told across many titles, 10 to be exact. And let's start with the one you meet in the very, very first game. By then, Princess Leia, para Lazos. Oh boy, she's a mess. The first time you met her, she's at her most conniving, her most psychotic, and her most cunning. Yet, all those traits make her, how can I say it? She is the prevailing antagonist in that title with her all those qualities. But oddly enough, throughout the series, and again, I'd rather not spoil how it happens or not, you see her take the role of the queen in her nation, and her policies are very strict. Her skills are in governance is very, very wise. She has a very brutal approach on punishing harshly any and all traitors, but at the same time, rewarding handsomely those who prove useful, loyal, and productive. And that shrewd nature of hers, combined with good geological position, with building trust and building industries, promoting useful merchant, useful craftsmen, all of that led to the Kingdom of Lazos experiencing golden age during her rule like nothing else, and all neighboring countries could only stare in envy. And if not for actions of a certain man of that series, she would even conquer neighboring cities. But as this series does some weird stuff, it just so happened that whenever she did, Rans just say, no, stop, Leah, go home. And she just goes away. Because by the end of the first game, she went so deep in love with Rans. It's hilarious switch whenever you as a reader see and hear her in action in governance, how she manages a very, very deep web of intelligence, of gathering all intelligence, all the espionage, all the know-how between countries and foreign affairs. Mm-hmm. And then she meets Rans and Rans says, okay, stay with me for a week. And she's like, okay. Like, what she flips whenever she meets him. It's so hilarious. So one of the plot points in one of the titles is Rans is adventuring in another country, and she is on the verge of conquer. So she is a moment before announcing war, and he's like, no, wait, I'm here. Go away. I'll be there in a week to visit you. And she's like, okay, cool. I'll be waiting. And that's it. There's no war. Like, what?
When you think about it, having one person in this much power over the country with the whims to declare and call off war is pretty bad. And on the other hand, having one person being so clearly influential on them is also really bad.
Yeah, it is. Oh. It works so hilarious because the way Rans and the way Leah behaves is so like they work in such a similar ways. They always get what they want. They kind of act like spoiled children at times, and they are so ideal for each other. I just love those two. Whenever I see them, it's like my favorite pairing from Rans. They have the best vibe, and Leah is one of those very few characters in the entire series who knows how to manage Rans. Let's say it like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
She really. They both know how to affect each other, even though Otherwise, they are very stubborn people that always aim to get what they want. Which is so weird to see such a accomplished ruler manage so much all the time. On the flip of the switch, she just goes into crazy mode when she meets realms.
So would you say she's a good ruler? I mean, it's hard to boil it all down to a simple yes or no question.
Yeah,
But overall,
if living in her world is so good, you don't starve. Everything is prospering. You have a golden age of commerce, of everything. Even technological advancement. They are the first right now, overtook everything else. Like, yeah, she's proven herself, because that wasn't the case in the first game when the country was like on the verge of good economic growth. When she came to power, it boomed. Now it's the golden age.
Okay.
But to contrast that, let's take the neighboring nation, the magic kingdom of Zeph. Formerly the most technologically advanced one, with their advancement in magic. And some magic fantasy stuff, like they invented magic television, equivalent to our television. They use magic, okay, Magivision. And they at the top, there sits a king, Ragnarok the Super Gandhi. And with a name like that, you expect him to be a badass, right? And he's such a softie. Okay. He is constantly absent in royal court. He's more interested in being a Batman and helping the innocent by rescuing them from crime. So he just randomly appears in the night and declares himself, "I'm the justice." And he, in his absence, appointed a high court of magisters to run affairs for him. Because, he's not at the court all the time. And country without leader is an absolute disarray. And oh my god, what?
Well, are you sure? Because apparently he's got other council people to do his job and cover it for him, so he could be an absent leader.
Oh boy. What that created is divide between haves and have-nots. Because the High Council, what they did is created such a high barrier of entry to good education that it divided the classes into high and rich mages and peasants. People who have absolutely no rights whatsoever and live in something that even cannot be equated to ghettos.
Oh, man.
Oh, because anything and all the High Court does is in place just so no one threatens their power. And they consolidate power all the time, treating their subject as just cattle. On contrary, Gandhi single-handedly defeated at least dozen of assassins sent after his life by his own court of magisters, who managed his own country's affairs. And his response to that was, "Oh, no, they surely made a mistake. I believe in them." Because he's that good of a person, and he believes in good in people.
Oh, jeez.
During the night, one of the nights on the patrol of his Batman adventures, you even read that he uncovered a hunting game of rich magnate who hunted people for sport, let's say. He defeated him easily, right? Subdued him and threw him in the jail, saying, "Oh no, I believe in him. He's just confused. He can do better." In 2 days, he was out due to connections and back at it again. So
still doing his villainous shenanigans.
Yeah, and he had the stylish mustache to do that, so he could twirl his mustache as well.
Oh man,
it is crazy how much of a good guy the Ragnarok is, to the point of this being his biggest weakness. He's such a softie, the moment Rance meets him, it's the most hilarious thing ever. is when all of that strife, all of that disarray comes to an end when the country has to unite against the foreign invasion, and it's not the neighboring city; it was something else. I'm not going into details, but they united, and the Ragnarok Super Gandhi sees that, and he starts crying that I couldn't achieve that in my rule, but look at them now. And like, dude, you created the divine.
So I love how you mentioned there's the two different characters. There's the princess who has some ruthless aspects to her, but overall is a very good and just and prosperous leader. And then you have this Ragnarok guy who is far too naive for his own good and is basically just allowing all sorts of awful stuff to happen.
Yep. This is such a my favorite example of two rulers. And in Ragnarok Super Gandhi, I think he just is too strong. He just cannot. Yeah, he cannot experience tragedy because he's one of the strongest mages in the continent, as well as he's accomplished warrior because he's very buff, muscular, and single-handedly defeat multiple opponents at once with magic and his brawn. Nothing threatens him. You cannot do anything to him. He's too strong for it on good. So because he can't experience strife, he doesn't see bad in people. He sees good in people, and only good. Like, that's so interesting.
Does that mean he's only fought good people? That makes him even worse. He's heartless.
Yeah, like, he sees the evil deeds those people commit, but after subduing them, he says, no, you just need some time, and I believe in you.
Oh, man.
Like, one of the scenes that was hilarious is robbers. There were thieves robbing a store, and he stops them. Like, they don't even pose a threat to him. And he says, okay, my left hand, because he is accompanied by two companions of his, right? My right hand, please give them some money because they're just too poor for that. Like, what the fuck? Like, he didn't even punch them, gave some money, and they went away. Like, yeah, they're just poor guys. They didn't want it. Like, give them the money, let them go. Like,
oh boy, oh boy, oh boy.
Nothing is solved in that country ever.
And of course, this is what leads to a lot of the conflict between Rance and the rest of the game.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. This is the moment the Rance get involved. Yeah, in a weird twist of fate, he kind of solves the problem, sees the problem. It's all weird from there. Okay, he got involved. Oh, but it's just such an interesting example of taking a trait of being too naive and too trusting to see good in people to such an extreme it became your major weakness. And that combined with the fact that you want to be the hero of justice instead of, serving your country as a ruler should, complete chaos. And the country is probably the worst thing you could live in the Rance world.
Oh dear.
Don't pick that. Never. And on the same note.
Well, it's
following that.
Yeah.
Unless you have a question?
No, that's all right. I was just wanted to say that apparently it sounds pretty good in his world if you are an evil person.
That's true. Yes. Yeah. Oh my god. But following that train of thought, Taurus, I have a peculiar question. What kingdom from a VN would you like to live in?
That is interesting. Mostly because anytime you see a kingdom in a visual novel, usually they get framed as the bad guys. You're always playing as the hero, the adventurer, the individual fighting against the system. So, But I think I would go with a title called Queen Beast. It is a typical magical fantasy world. There's monsters and fairies and magic and swords abound in that sort of environment. And so I think that would be a really magical place to live and experience. It's got all sorts of different environments, beautiful nature and all of that. The one bad thing about it, though, is that the country it's set in is currently overrun by an extremely powerful warrior named the Beast. A warlord who, runs rampant over this subjugated country. And who apparently has free reign to kidnap beautiful women into her castle. And so that would be very unfortunate. Not for me, though, because I am not a beautiful woman. So I
believe you would be in that world.
Hey, you don't know. So I think... So for me, personally, that wouldn't be a problem. Although, of course, there is always the concern that if you have someone almighty just running about who is quite hedonistic, then there's no telling what they'll get up to in the future, though, right?
Yeah, true.
But if you could just live on your own in like the little countryside, just away from the city and away from anything important, that'd be, you could make a pretty nice life for yourself, right?
Okay, I see. So you said, okay, this is an interesting setting that has some very high potential dangers. So let me keep the system and avoid all the dangers. And live remotely. I like that.
It's not that high danger or high scary. I mean, there are much worse worlds out there.
Oh, definitely.
The people with a massive army just ruling every citizen with an iron fist. It's like, no, it's very hands off.
Okay. Yeah,
that's what I
can
think.
dig it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can dig it.
So overall, I would be very happy to live a little life and then just go sightseeing. You got some beautiful coasts. You've got some enchanted forests.
You got my attention. Okay.
Oh, yeah, see. You got all the locales to visit and all sorts of interesting people, too.
Okay. Now you're starting me on that. Okay.
I thought about it, and this realm of Queen Beast, this would probably want to be one of the better places to live.
So very much a comfortable peak, right?
Yes, I wouldn't want to be in Rance Land with like your son, with your awful prince and maybe awful princess who is shipping us all out to war every 2 years or whenever she feels like it.
Yes. On Tuesday, okay?
I think I'll take a pass on those. But yeah. What about you, MR?
Okay.
What kind of world are you going to try living in and try making your living at?
So, I'll be honest. Ran's world is too dangerous. There's too much bad stuff coming here. I don't like my chances. Okay.
Okay.
But if I think I would pick a vehicle. No, this is from the same studio who created Rams, and it's still not established whether or not it is part of Rams verse as a whole, but it shares a lot of concepts. But some of the concept it twists, and the one concept it does twist is that humanity is bound by divine laws. And as long as you don't break them, you are considered human and under protection, under divine protection. But if you break them, you instantly lose that, in addition to being unable to produce. That's the culmination of the curse. You cannot produce.
I see.
Whatever that may entail.
And also, like you mentioned, this is divine law.
Yeah, this is divine law.
Unshatterable.
Yeah, exactly. It is written in the rules of the entire world itself. It's not a mortal law that is decreed by a ruler. And those two rules are: you cannot kill humans and you cannot cheat. So you can have only one partner for life. That's it. As long as you don't break those rules, you are considered human. And the moment you break those rules, you get branded with a black ring you cannot remove. And you are not human anymore.
Oh, okay.
So the very fact of such a world means the structure of kingdom changes, and it is reflected in the story. They do not have laws pertaining to the crime, not really, because no one has incentive of killing people, not even as a capital punishment. You don't cheat, so there's too much risk of doing bad stuff for you to consider doing them. So it is oddly, there's a lot of good stemming from that, so I would like to take my chances. In addition to some interesting concepts such as your in a power level being measurable, because the concept of level exists. It's not a gamified system. It is common knowledge. People know their levels, they expertise in certain things. So it would be actually very interesting if I could, by going to the shop, to the grocery store, asking for a level review and to uncover my talent in singing. Like, because they would tell me, yeah, you have singing level 2, try singing. Like, oh, okay. That actually makes finding my talent so much easier.
So there's also a gamified system involved in Evanical that would very much affect daily life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that is so intriguing to me, like knowing what your good strengths and weaknesses are just by going to the shop and asking them for a scan. Like, wait, that actually sounds super neat.
And then, of course, obviously, you would live your life on the straight and narrow and avoid any of the terrible punishments, right?
Yes, as much as I can.
As much as you can?
Yeah, because I'd rather not go into story, but stuff happens that you might not expect. But yeah, I would definitely avoid any trouble and even potential of breaking the law, divine law, because what I did not say, and it's kind of implied that your intent doesn't matter. As long as you kill, you kill.
Ah, interesting.
So, yeah.
That is one danger of this rule, huh?
Yes, exactly. That's your free will doesn't really matter. So,
But in this case, is there any hope of changing some of these rules involved? Is there any hope in like the rulers of the kingdom maybe making things a little nicer for you to live in this place?
oh, definitely, they make sure there's plenty of incentives to never break the rules. But can you overturn a divine rule? No.
Oh.
At the very least, the countries themselves develop in such a state. As long as you adhere to those, you're well off.
Well, okay, I guess that's something then.
Yeah, exactly. That's something. So avoid temptations and be a good Samaritan.
Or you'll pay
you'll
for
do
it.
well. No, it wouldn't work. No.
Hopefully you'd be fine, Amor.
Yeah.
Oh dear. Well, on that note, we will wrap up the discussion for today.
Yep.
Thank you all for listening. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope to see you all again next week, too.
Yeah. Thank you, and venture out.
Venture out.